Right. And it's very interesting to me from just even my experience, going to these demonstrations. It's like the conversation in media and online, which is just, I'm in a very cynical place about social media completely right now. Maybe at some point we do need to take a China option. And by the way, that's a joke for those who will clip that and take it out of context. But that being said, the right wing obsesses with demonizing the protesters, telling a bunch of racist lies, but also really enjoys this narrative of the kind of like silly pedant, white, liberal paying kind of penance. And then on the other hand, there is the kind of, again, the sort of woke industry which moralizes and sort of reduces it. And I have to say, some of the experience, though, it's just so, like, it's so matter of fact. This is expressions of profound and deep racism. Fellow citizens are being murdered by security forces. It's completely democratically unacceptable. And therefore, everybody needs to show up to stop it, period. Full stop. And there's a whole ethos that flows out of that I think is actually very in tandem with the kind of mass movement you're talking about.
Yeah, I agree. When I look at that and what's happening, what I immediately think is the way in which, I know it's happened here and I've seen it happen to some degree where you are with the Black Lives Matter movement, the way in which the media has taken movements which have quite clear material and direct demands in many respects about the way in which the police are behaving, particularly towards, obviously, Black people and younger Black people in the United States, but the impunity with which police are operating, because the demands are quite general across police departments. And in America, you've got a particularly paramilitarized police force, which act almost as occupiers in working class neighborhoods in many parts of the country. How they took that and they made it about all kinds of other side issues. So here they managed to take it and make it about like popular TV shows. And are we going to pull them off the kind of services like on the BBC or whatever, because someone said a word in an episode from a TV show in the 1970s? Or, it's about, are we going to end up with taking down every statue of Churchill in the entire country or whatever? And it is a deflection tactic, because actually the right wing, and this is why the right wing focuses on the culture war and why it loves the culture war. Because through the culture war, you can deflect the real and meaningful reforms that people are demanding. And if you are talking about why you can't let the police go wild and murder people with impunity, then you can go to a working class area in this country, a place where there has been the experience of the miners' struggle, and you can say, this is why we need to rein in the police. Because you experienced the same thing a couple of decades ago when you were on picket lines. And there will be millions of working class people who will understand that and acknowledge that reality and say, yeah, actually, my experience of dealing with the police is much the same. That I understand that we need to rein them in, that there cannot be impunity, and that the police cannot be used in fundamentally anti-democratic and repressive ways against the population. And those demands could achieve very broad appeal. And I do think they're demands that are majoritarian demands. But what the right tries to do is to channel this all down a generation war, or channel it down into some, kind of cultural motifs, some things that can never be solved. Like in Britain, the question of whether we're going to take faulty towers off the goddamn television. I mean, stuff that just like, are we going to go back over, this is the piece then. You can imagine what the comment pieces are in the papers. Oh, are we going to start going back over all of TV history and censoring it all? And then that, gins up some kind of mad reaction from older people who are like, oh, these are all my favorite shows and they're being taken off air. Whereas no one in the movement demanded any of those things. The real demands around the police violence are getting totally lost amid the culture war nonsense. That's why the right loves the culture war, and it's why we have to, where possible, try not to get sucked into it. Because the more we go into that terrain and the less we focus on the demands that actually change things in people's lives, the more we lose the political arguments.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, that to me is a very clear kind of lesson of recent years and the rise of these kind of culture wars, and also at the same time the rise in movements like Black Lives Matter and the huge protests you see around them, which evidences the potential for building a majoritarian position around real meaningful change.
Absolutely.
You just watched a Michael Brooks show video. Subscribe to get them all. Why wouldn't you? Don't be foolish. Click subscribe below and become a patron as well. Patreon.com/TMBS. Thanks, everybody.